Hi, everyone. I'm Shelley Lyle.
And I'm Brian Avery.
And welcome to Voices from the Field, a podcast brought to you by the Department of Sport Management at the University of Florida. This podcast was created to share the career journeys of sport industry professionals. Our hope is that you learn the ins and outs of different sport industry professions. We are excited to be with all of you this week and with our special guest, Jocelyn Moore. Jocelyn is the Open Access Executive Fellow for the New Markets Support Company.
Jocelyn got her bachelor's in English and her master's in education from the University of Florida, a double gator. She has been the managing director for the Glover Park Group, a young leader for French American Foundation, a chief communications officer for the NFL, an angel investor for Pipeline Angels, an executive in residence for the Gathering Spot, and is currently an Open Access Executive Fellow and a board member for DraftKings. Thank you for being with us today, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much for having me. Go Gators.
Go
Gators. I know. And that resume, wow. It's impressive. Lots of things, lots of amazing experiences. So you've worked in multiple industries, all with top organizations and in a variety of capacities. Can you give a brief overview of your career journey?
Absolutely. First, happy Gator Giving Day. I'm super excited to be with you. Thank you all for the opportunity. When I left the University of Florida with my master's degree, I packed up my Toyota Corolla. I've been bitten by the political bug. I served as student body vice president while I was at UF, and I knew I wanted to be in the center of power. So I drove my little Corolla home to Atlanta for 2 weeks. I told my parents I was headed to Washington, D.C. because by golly, I was going to work in politics. And so I moved to Washington. I did not have a job at the time. I worked at the mall. I slept on the couch of my sorority sister who worked for the Census Bureau. And within a few weeks, Zell Miller, who had been the governor for the state of Georgia, got appointed to the United States Senate. So, of course, my mom, calls me and says, well, remember you said you wanted to be in the seat of power? Well, the governor just got appointed to be a senator and you should go work for him. And I kind of paused and I was like, well, Mom, of course, there's a lot more supply than there is demand. I can't just say, hey, my name is Jocelyn and I'm from Georgia. You should give me a job. And she said, well, of course you can. You're great. And once he hears from you and he meets you, he's going to give you a job. The governor's going to give you a job. So one of the constants of my life is the, support and encouragement of my mom. And so, of course, she was right. She's always right. I applied for the job. I was one of the first legislative staff people hired for the senator, and went on to work for him for a little bit less than a year, and then worked for Senator Bob Graham, go Gators. After that, spent time with him, really learning the ins and outs of health policy. While I had intended to stay on Capitol Hill for about a year and a half, I stayed for 15. Worked on a lot of great policy initiatives. And that was kind of the, really doing what I said I would do and following my passions for being in the seat of power. After that, I went to become a lobbyist. I worked for the Glover Park Group, as Brian mentioned. The NFL happened to be a client of the Glover Park Group at that time. And it's a story of having a really strong mentor as your boss, a really strong manager. And so my boss at the time came into my office one day and said very ominously, we need to meet. And I said, oh my goodness, I am getting fired. What is happening? Because he never used that tone. And he's like, we're going to meet in the conference room. And we always met in my office or his office. So we get into the conference room and he continues. He's like, I'm not for this, but. And he continues on. He's like, there's this great job at the National Football League. If you're interested, we really want you to go for it and we want to support you in it. And, I was like, oh my goodness, Joel, am I getting fired? What is happening? He said, of course not. You have done a tremendous job here. You can stay as long as you like, but this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I'm sure we'll circle back to those once in a lifetime opportunities and how to prepare for them. So long story short, as I was deciding, and I kind of said to Joel, I've worked in lobbying. I found my balance. I really want to stay here. I love what I'm doing. I don't know about going to work for the NFL. That's a big job. And so I said to him, I was like, you know what? I'm going to call and ask my mom. Now, for those of you who are sports fans, both my parents are into sports, but my dad is the much bigger sports fan. My mom is kind of my mom and my biggest cheerleader. So I called her and I said, so Mom, there's this job at the NFL, but I'm settled at the Glover Park Group and I really found my rhythm. so don't you think I should just stay at the Glover Park Group? And in 2 seconds, she said, Jocelyn, what's the worst that can happen? You have this amazing job that you love, and you're going to go interview for this other awesome job. So if you don't get it, you just return to this job that you love. So yet again, my mom was right. I ended up getting the job to lead the Washington office of the National Football League. I was their head lobbyist for 2 years before being promoted to the chief communications officer, which I also did for a couple of years before striking out on my own and doing all of the amazing things that you've highlighted. So that's a little synopsis with a lot of details in between. So,
Jocelyn, I have to interject there. Do you have political aspirations at some point in your life? I mean, background. So I'm just thinking, all right, when is she going to make the big announcement? Maybe it's
Brian, you're very kind. It's a hard thing to be in political life. I do love being in and around politics, being a part of, making our country awesome and continuing to contribute and make an impact.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that I love. I don't presently have aspirations. Running for student government at the University of Florida is pretty darn serious.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like running a regular campaign, in real life. And so I loved every minute of that. At this point, I'm just focused on what I'm doing, which is, really nurturing a healthy intellectual curiosity. And I don't make plans. Like, people are like, what's your 5-year plan? I don't have a 5-year plan. I'm just going to keep doing things I'm passionate about. Politics is one of them. So I hope to always be connected to it.
I love it. All right. Good response. No.
Sounds like a politics. Like, you got
I got that down. I don't want to sound like a politician. I
No, that's awesome.
No.
And so tell us your regarding your current position or positions. What are your daily, duties, functions, responsibilities? What activities in your job have you enjoyed the most and found most interesting? I know that's like 5 questions, but
I love all that now. And let me know, Shelley, if I don't answer all the questions. So in my current job, I have a lot of freedom. I have my own consulting firm, Jocelyn Consulting LLC. So I work for a number of different entities, from corporations to startups. I advise a number of startups, Brian, which you mentioned in your introduction.
Yeah.
So I really get to, as I said, really nurture an intellectual curiosity. I decided in the last couple of years that I really wanted to learn more about the venture capital space. I really wanted to learn more about how, innovation is happening to power our economy. Of course, COVID happened, so we're really going to have to rely on entrepreneurs, startups to power the new economy and the new normal in a post-COVID world. So I get to sit at the intersection of all of that. I really do get to spend time with founders and CEOs every day talking about business strategy. How should they, pivot to the new normal? How do they make sure, if they're in, a service-oriented business, which one of the firms that I work a lot with is, how do they pivot to, when we're done with COVID and restaurants are reopening, how do they make sure that they are at a competitive advantage? So I'm at the intersection of business, communications, and politics, and those are 3 of my favorite things. So I really get to determine the path that I want to take, the things that I want to work on. And certainly at this moment in history, when so much is happening in terms of social justice and racial equality, being in a position where I can be a part of those discussions and really have an impact and contribute, that's what really excites me. That's what makes me happy every single day. And there's a lot of great work happening at the University of Florida. There's also great work happening in corporate America and in the public sector. So I'm super excited, and I get to participate a little bit in all of those things.
Yeah, and that's quite a bit. I mean, at the intersections that you're describing, I'm curious, and you talk about the economy, and you brought up COVID. Are you optimistic, if you will, with respect to the future of our country and the economy and/or entrepreneurship and the various opportunities that might be on the horizon? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I always bet on America. Absolutely, I'm optimistic. My mom, as I mentioned, she's an optimist, so that rubs off on me. And I'm a glass half full type of person. And what I'm seeing, I mean, just with some of the pitches that we've had at Pipeline Angels, I'm also a venture partner at Ozone Exit Ventures. Some of the, the ingenuity of, the startup, founders and the startup economy, it's amazing. And, I'm bound by all sorts of confidentiality.
No, I figured.
In the healthcare space, in the hospitality space, in the B2B space, generally, there are so many great ideas. And you can see this. The other big idea that I'm a part of is the phenomenon called Clubhouse. And the thing that has happened there, and it's been in all the news, it has $1 billion valuation, and it's an opportunity for the democratization, really, of business. And so you'll have founders who are on calls with, established, CEOs, like, Elon Musk was on a call a couple of weeks ago, but it's people from all walks of life participating in conversations about business, about, life and, balance and yoga and all of the above. And so being a fly on the wall in those conversations and hearing, like, I'm, very interested in art, and I was on a conversation about NFTs and digital art. Well, before I joined that call, I didn't even know what an NFT was, but I learned it on the call. And so what I'm seeing, just across the board gives me a lot of excitement. Our small businesses, they have always powered our economy. Innovators like the students at the University of Florida, who many probably have their own small business and big business ideas, they are going to lead us forward. And I'm really excited about that. The last thing I would say is most recently, I've been involved with the launch of the Rural Chamber of Commerce in America. Rural small business, it often gets overlooked as the focus is so much in cities, but there is not a person in America who is not connected to rural America. So I also believe very strongly in rural and what our rural economy is going to be able to do coming out of COVID.
That's awesome. I'll be honest with you, though. I think I'm going to have to Google NFTs as well.
All the digital art, it's digital art and how it gets sold and all that. Okay. Yeah, the acronym, I can't remember what it stands for, but I've got to go back and look at that. This was literally yesterday.
Okay. No.
MC Hammer was on the call. And
wow.
I'm like, why are all these people on this call? What is happening? But that intellectual curiosity, it just kind of, I'll participate in conversations of which I have no idea what the topic is, but I'll listen and I'll ask questions. That's how you learn and grow, right?
Absolutely.
And speaking on that intellectual curiosity, you've kind of spoken to that a couple times. Yeah. Where did that come from? How have you always had that? If you can expand on what that means for some of our students who are listening.
So I'm always learning, no matter what, where life takes me, what position I'm in. I really view it as a great privilege of life. And we all have this privilege to be able to learn something new every single day. And so sometimes it's as easy as waking up and you'll see something on television. This morning, I was watching the morning shows and there were all these amazing books that were being highlighted, none of which I've read. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, I've got to read all these books. These are, they're amazing. So it's just having that healthy, always seeking type of mentality. And that's really how I approach life, personally and professionally. And it's why I'm a multi-hyphenate, right? So I do lots of things. I don't like to be pigeonholed. Yes, there are priorities in terms of politics, communications, and business, but I do all sorts of other things on the margins. I'm an angler. I learned that from my mom and my auntie. I love to go fishing. I collect art. That's something that I've just, kind of gotten into and really, really love. I like to have fun. I love movies. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is one of my favorite things. Although I have to say, the Snyder Cut for the Justice League, I'm a huge Joker fan, and I love Jared Leto as the Joker. Oh. So if you haven't seen that, shout out to that. So it's just kind of, just having a broad horizon and, following things that I'm passionate about and interested in and learning something new every day. We're trying to.
As another term you just mentioned, hyphenate, that I think I'm going to have to adopt or research at the end of it. I like that. Look at this. I'm all learning.
I can't be pigeonholed. I have I'm a founder. I'm a executive. I'm a auntie. I'm all these things. So it's just
but
different roles we play.
Sometimes it's hard for people to define that. If you get where I'm coming from, where. Yeah. I give you little bits of this and that, but to come up with this nice little bubble, if you will, a word bubble, it's like, this is what it is. And this is how I fit into that. And it's nice. And you learn because, people take time to explore how do I fit into the world that I've created, so that someone else can understand it. And I really appreciate you being able to provide a synopsis of that. So now with that said, I mean, you've had all these executive leadership roles, and I would imagine, with your illustrious career and all the stages of management that you've been through, how have you evolved as a leader, an innovator, a person, if you will?
Evolving as a person, going back to my time at the University of Florida, I really came into my own as a student at UF. I don't say this often, but I started at the University of Georgia. My parents made me go at a full scholarship. It gets worse. So I went there for a year, and my parents made a deal with me. They're like, if you don't like it, you can leave, but if you leave, you have to pay for your own education. So I did. I decided to leave because the University of Georgia, I have a lot of friends who went there, obviously being from the state, but it was like the 13th grade. It was all the people I grew up with, and I really wanted a different experience. So I transferred to Florida State, and we're going to gloss over that. I was there for a semester. They had an amazing English program before I finally settled at the University of Florida. And, there was the matter of the boyfriend at the time who played football. And so I ended up at the University of Florida, and, I really came into my own as a person. I learned, what I was passionate about, service to others, and being active in life. My motto as a student was really take an active part in your college experience. And that really has migrated to my life, take an active part in your life. And so that means showing up every day and maintaining that healthy intellectual curiosity, following those things that you're passionate about. Don't accept no for an answer. If it's something that you're really interested in, find a way to explore it. And so the things that I have learned really started at the University of Florida, that kind of coming into my own, and how I've carried that forward. I hope that I've been the kind of leader that is a good listener, that tries to uplift those around me and really build solid teams. And, the good thing about the University of Florida, that was a great lesson to learn early on, is it all comes down to relationships. It really does. And so everything that I've ever done, even DraftKings, was a relationship that I, developed when I was at the National Football League, and it came full circle. There have been so many moments in my life where things have come full circle, and an opportunity will present itself because of a prior engagement or a relationship or someone that I met and had a chance conversation with. So, I think we're always evolving as leaders. There's no, yes, I've arrived. And so I think it really, comes down to knowing who you are, knowing what you're good at and your limitations, learning to be better at those things that you may not be as good at, and, taking it as an experiential learning opportunity, every job that you have and every experience that you have. And so that's how I've really tried to lead. And, I'm always learning. So I always endeavor to be better tomorrow than I was yesterday. And, hopefully I achieve that goal.
No, I think you're flying colors in that regard. We are glad that you made your way to UF, by the way. So,
me too. Oh, man.
Yeah, no, so, but aside from that, I'm also extremely happy that you mentioned relationship building, because that is ultimately what, our role is in this particular podcast, in professional development engagement, in establishing those relationships. And, not just someone knowing, like, as a student, as example, someone in a specific position, but that person knowing them as well, and those connections that can be made. So I think that's instrumental. Obviously, it's instrumental, and it has been in your career. So I really appreciate you sharing that bit of advice, because it bolsters everything that we've been saying. So
it's true, Brian. If I could just give a couple of quick examples.
Please.
One of the best examples, when I was on the Hill, I was the deputy staff director of the Senate Finance Committee, and my colleague on the other side of the aisle, he worked for the Republican at that time chairman. He became ranking member of the Senate Finance Committee, and we would kind of plot, like we had been friends before either of us got to the Finance Committee. He worked for Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah. I worked for Senator Jay Rockefeller of West Virginia. And we had always worked together on children's health policy, on a number of other policy areas. So when we got to those roles, which were kind of the roles of a lifetime for a Hill staffer, we knew how to work with one another, and we had such a strong foundational relationship. So fast forward to now, he's a strategist at Duff & Phelps in New York. He had, a stint as an assistant secretary as Treasury. Still one of my best friends. I bounce ideas off of him. he makes introductions and helps me think through things, or if there's, a person I want to meet, or, a challenge that I'm having, he's just one of those people. And it's all about that relationship. And we've become these amazing friends. We are lifelong friends. But there are so many people who are like that. Aisha Dixon is also a good friend and fellow Gator. She and I started at the University of Florida together 20 plus years ago. She just posted on LinkedIn this week. She led our Black History Month efforts while I was there. And it's been like 25 or something years, or 20 plus years since we did that. And she posted a cute and very meaningful post on LinkedIn about our work together. So it's things like that. They make me so happy. And it's all about relationships, And it doesn't mean you have to talk to people every day.
Right.
But you never want to, if possible, leave a relationship in a negative space.
I agree. It's a much smaller world than people sometimes think. As big as it is, it's funny whose paths you'll cross along your journey multiple times. So that's amazing advice, and I really appreciate that. Now, as you transitioned, if you will, from collegiate life as a double gator, if there was any specific thing you'd wish you had known before your career started, what would that be?
Wow, that's a great question. Just to, I think, probably be as confident as my mom
Okay.
always has been in my ability. It's not that I've lacked kind of the, yes, I know that I'm capable from a cerebral, kind of standpoint. But, I think there have been moments, and we all have those moments where, like, did I make the right decision? Is this the right career path? I'm sleeping on my friend's couch and working at the mall. I have a master's degree. I think really just, for lack of a better phrase, leaning in more and taking it all in, as opposed to having, those moments of critique and self-doubt, because it all works itself out, right?
Yeah.
If you are truly following your passion, if you are doing things that you love, being a good person, having positive relationships, it does work out. And this is not a Pollyanna-ish type statement. It is like, if you're living your core values, if you're following your North Star, I know what my North Star is. My personal mission is to live a life of joy and on purpose.
Wow.
I follow that North Star every day. And look, I didn't come to that North Star as kind of a head and heart, meeting until a couple of years ago. But now every decision I make, career, personal, etc., is it going to bring me joy? Is it going to have an impact in the world? And I think if you have your personal mission statement, whatever it is, and it's not going to be the same as the person next to you, it's not going to be the same as your family member. So I wish that, maybe I had that personal mission statement, and just that level of, it's all going to be okay. It's all going to be awesome. Just, take it all in, enjoy the experience, be in the moment. I wish I would have done that a little bit earlier on. So that would be my advice to folks listening in. Just enjoy the experience. Yeah, and I enjoyed most experiences. Let me just be clear. But
right. I still call my mom for affirmation. I almost daily, my rock type thing. So I really appreciate you referring back to that. And I think it's very helpful, the advice that you've provided. I do also think it's important, at least my perspective is, to be flexible, because your mission and things like that and your goals are going to change, and to be in alignment as those changes occur, and how are you going to progress as a person. So I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, be kind to yourself. Like, we don't all have everything figured out. I mean, why would we do anything? If we knew everything that was going to happen, and we knew every experience, and we didn't have any challenges, challenges are the things that help us grow. And so I welcome, the opportunities as well as the challenges, because in those moments of challenge where you can say, what did I learn from this experience? What can I take from this experience and apply to the next thing as I'm entering the next, job or the next opportunity? How can I apply what I've learned from this challenging experience? I really believe that.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that I just keep thinking of, like, humbleness, the word humble for you as you've been speaking. And I think, from just listening in, it feels like that's a core of you in the process of wanting to learn though as well, right? If you're continually wanting to learn, is that what's helped you kind of stay grounded in all these top roles?
My family has helped me stay grounded. My mom was the only one of her siblings to go to college. My dad and my stepfather, neither of them actually went to college, but they both, my stepdad worked for our transit system in Atlanta for, over 20 years. And my stepdad grew up on a farm. My mom and dad also grew up in rural parts of the country, hence the passion on rural America. But, my mom always instilled in us, yes, you can do what you set your mind to with a lot of hard work. You're not better than anyone. And you not only when you get to a position, you work as hard as you can, but you reach back and you make sure that you bring other people along. And if you're the first person in a position, make sure that you're not the last. Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, has, said that many times. And I grew up in a family where that was definitely part and parcel of, learning and growing and being is, this isn't about you. It really is about the greater good and being a person out in the world. I don't know that I always understood it when I was young, but now I feel like those full circle moments of, really being connected to who I am, what I believe and what my value system is.
That's awesome. And when you're talking about, influential people in your life, obviously it sounds like your mom is a very influential person. Are there 2 or 3 other people that have been, you would say, the most influential in your life and your career journey?
Oh my goodness. So right there with my mom is my aunt. She passed away a couple of years ago. My mom's sister, Aunt Gladys, just an amazing person. And, she was my person. When I think about my time at the University of Florida, she would send me back. So I would drive home, occasionally. She would send me back with a trunk load of food from her freezer. I knew you were coming home. I went to the store. I got all of your favorite stuff. And they'd be in these styrofoam coolers, the ones.
Yeah.
And she'd send me back to the university with all this food. And she'd give me cash. And, she just was that person. She came to, all of my college graduations. I missed my second one from the College of Education, which is a long story. I got stuck in DC in the plane. I was on the last flight and it didn't take off. So I missed that. But my parents were there and they supported all of my friends who were graduating, my sorority sisters. So yeah, my aunt, just a tremendous person alongside my mom. Senator Rockefeller, I just have to say, and I'll tell a brief story about him. In our lives, we have mentors and we have sponsors, right? And Senator Rockefeller was both for me. And a mentor, someone who one-on-one kind of nurtures you, helps you with career advice and provides that one-on-one internal kind of, advice and encouragement. A sponsor is someone who externally advocates on your behalf. Mm-hmm. Senator Rockefeller was both. And one of the greatest examples, and this is the type of person I want to be, and I endeavor to be every day. We were in the middle of negotiating health reform. And there was this big table. We were in the United States Capitol. All the senators were seated around this table, all the senior senators. I believe Senator Kennedy was still alive at that time. But it was around this oval table in the majority leader, Harry Reid's office. And so we're all in there on strategy. The staff is kind of off in the back to the side of the room. And so Senator Rockefeller calls me up. And he has a question. And, he liked to ask questions, tell jokes. Just a great person. I still talk to him to this day. One of my favorite people. And so he calls me up. He asks this question. And so I'm preparing to go back with the rest of the staff. And he says, "Oh, no, Jocelyn." And he pulls up a chair for me to sit at the table with the senators. And I'm like, "Oh, no, Senator. I'm going to go back here with the staff. That's where I should be with the staff." He's like, "Oh, no, Jocelyn. I want you to sit right here by me in case I have any questions." And I said, "Senator, nobody else's staff is sitting here." And he's like, "Well, that's okay. I want you to sit here and everybody's going to be fine." And so he, as I said, he pulled up a chair. I sat right beside him at the table with all these senators. And it's one of those moments where, yes, I'm just this lowly staff person, not better than any of the other staff. But the senator felt it important to make a point in that moment that Jocelyn is my person. I want you to know, all of you senators, as we're negotiating health policy, she is my person. I trust her implicitly, and she's going to sit right beside me at this table. I mean, can you even imagine? As I talk about it, I still don't believe it happened, but for the fact that I was there. But that's the type of, sponsorship and, mentorship that we all want and hope for. And, when I think about that as the example of who every day, like that's the example that I would like to lead. That's the example I aspire to. And then lastly, I have these amazing friends. I won't mention them by name to embarrass all of them. But, I've had amazing colleagues. The Rockefeller office was run by all women, many of them longtime friends. I have other longtime friends, both from home and through my career journey. And it's great to have a kitchen cabinet. So in addition to your own personal mission statement, we all need people around us who keep us grounded, who tell us the truth when it's difficult to hear, who celebrate our victories, and who are there with us in our challenging times. So I have that. I have the most amazing friends, and I'm just so lucky to have them. Both alums of the University of Florida and people that I've met along the way. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think you've spoken about the relationships and how important those are. And what a good reminder for students to go, oh yeah, these are just my college friends, but really your college friends can become, your lifelong friends. And so being mindful of not taking it for granted too, and really, you don't know what they're going to end up doing either. And so continually using it, your 4 years or your 2 years in your master's as resources of people to just network and build deep relationships with not just, work focused.
Absolutely. And look, I'm connected to people, just as another example to extend that. After I'd left the University of Florida, I was living in Washington, D.C. So I had friends who hadn't gone to Florida, but they knew people who had gone to Florida either immediately before or immediately after I was there. And then we all became part of a broader friend network, and we're still friends to this day. So again, that speaks to relationships, and it doesn't even have to be the people that you were there with at the time. It's just part of how circles, intersect. It's that 6 degrees of separation. It's really true.
Yeah, absolutely.
You make some great points in regards to relationships. I wish more people in roles of leadership would take an active, effort or role in the younger people and bringing them up and along. I think there's a greater need for that, and make or take stands or positions on things like you've experienced. So hopefully people will be listening to this and they'll recognize, hey, that's a weakness that I've got. I think it's probably one that I have as well, is that I need to do a better job identifying those opportunities in my life. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Brian, I have just a funny quip that I'll just tell you.
Yeah.
I was on a call recently with founders who are, they haven't hit 30 yet. I'm certain of it.
Okay.
I'm well beyond that for everybody on the call, on the Zoom, on the chat. And I said, I was like, I made some reference to late 20s or what have you. I had to catch myself because I'm like, yes, we want the innovation and the dynamism of young people and the creativity, right? And so, but sometimes those of us who are a little bit older, yes, we have to remind ourselves, not everybody is, the more the merrier, the greater the experience, the greater the outcome and the impact. And we do have to consciously remind ourselves. I mean, think of Senator Rockefeller, bringing me along.
Yeah.
We have to always remind ourselves. So it's that next person. They may not be in your same, generation, but they may be 20 years behind you, but it's your responsibility, our responsibility, to have those conversations, develop those relationships so that we can all work together toward, big goals and big outcomes.
No, I completely agree. I think it's something that needs to be discussed more, obviously. So great position on that. Now, regarding your career, either in sports or politics, what is one common myth about your profession or the field that you think needs to be debunked?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question, Brian.
I'm sorry. But it's something I think can provide some value to people. Yeah.
I think in politics right now, and it was interesting, there was a conversation, I guess President Biden did a town hall this week, and I didn't see the town hall, but I saw some of the coverage of it afterwards. And one of the things that was getting a lot of blowback was he said there isn't a divide in America. Like if you go to small towns, like people are really more united than, you would think. And, I think what he is saying is based in truth, right? Okay. I mean, when you think about what we're doing at the University of Florida, and we all come from different backgrounds where there are students together. And I think about my time in student government. We didn't know what anybody's political affiliation was. We were all working together because we wanted to, do our best for the students and the student body at the University of Florida. And we so loved our university. And so that was what brought us together. And that type of common thread is true in politics as well. I know that it may not be on display as much as we would all like it to, but the thing that I would harken back to is my time. Zell Miller's office is another good example. So when I left that office and kind of moved through my career and other colleagues that I work with, we realized that half of us who had been working for Zell Miller went to work for Democrats, and then the other half of us went to work for Republicans. The reason that mattered and worked was because, again, like at the University of Florida, we were all in service to a goal greater than ourselves. So I have to believe, and this is the optimist in me, but also the pragmatist, because I've worked on Capitol Hill. I have worked in a bipartisan fashion to help pass big and small pieces of legislation, that there is so much more that unites us than divides us. And so I would just say to everyone out there, one, be the change that you want to see. So what are you doing? What are we all doing in our daily lives to have a conversation that may be uncomfortable, to talk to someone who has a background that is different than our own, to look at things from a lens that, may be different from our lived experience, but to try and have, as much as we can, a greater understanding and dialogue around those issues. So I think it is a bit of a surprise about how what seemingly disparate sides of the aisle can come together. But I'm hopeful that, that was certainly my experience, and I'm hopeful that we'll get there again. And I agree with the president that I think there's a lot more that unites us. And, we get into this media frenzy that, media is all about negative, many times, not always, but it's the shock and awe of media as opposed to kind of the human interest. And here are people doing good in the world. And hopefully we'll get back to, why don't we focus on the good in the world, not being Pollyanna-ish, but there's a lot of good that is happening that never makes it to the nightly news or to the news that we consume through a variety of outlets. So that's politics. In sports, there are so many women moving and shaking across sports. I think there's a misnomer. I always get asked the question about being a woman in male-dominated fields, so sports and politics. And I would just say, I'm a person who has a skill set, and I just work to do the best job that I can. And that's how I view every job that I've ever had. Yes, it's awesome that I happen to be a woman, and I'm a woman of color, and I have a great sense of pride in that. But I've worked extraordinarily hard to get to where I am, and I just want to keep doing that. But there are so many other women. Like I said, Rockefeller's office, all the leadership positions were women. That's how I really learned what it was to be a leader who's also a woman, and really own that and step into that role. And the same is true in sports across the different sports leagues, not just at the NFL, but the NHL and MLS and the NBA. There are amazing women who work across sports. And, so I think that's sometimes a misnomer also.
I'm glad I asked that question now. Because unifying message and just inspirational response. So I really appreciate that. It was good timing to ask that question. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for the question.
No, that was a good one.
I love that. It was, it is unifying, and the women, and just speaking to encouraging women, especially obviously in the sports industry. A lot of our students are, staying as a female, being minority in the industry, but being encouraged that, women are coming up, and we're starting to see that. I think women have been, but now we're getting a little bit more of an opportunity to have a voice and encouraging each other in hopes of also, including each other, not trying to, watch a couple different things and conversations around, wanting to build each other up rather than, I got to get that job. So, and I hope that is the direction that the culture in sports will continue to go as well.
Shelley, I want to sheep-heat what you just said. Absolutely. I absolutely, we have to lift one another up. We cannot operate from a position of scarcity. This is not a zero-sum game. And, earlier I talked about being the change that we all want to see. We all have choices and opportunities to be that change. We have opportunities big and small. And so there are small ways that we can amplify and support women in our network, and large ways to amplify and support women in our network. And sometimes we have to, break those glass ceilings and create the positions that we want. And, we cannot be afraid to be the first. There's this great article on the University of Florida Foundation's website by featuring Yolanda Cash Jackson. I would encourage everyone listening to go and check that out, because she talks about being the first, and she talks about some of the challenges that she's experienced as a lobbyist there in Florida, and overcoming those challenges. But we're all in sisterhood, and we're all in personhood. And we have a limited amount of time to make an impact and to do good in the world. Don't we all, and shouldn't we all want to, uplift people and, be people-centered and, magnanimous in our service as we go forward? That to me is there's no better way to be. It all comes back to you tenfold when you lead that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that was, I'm going to look into that article. I haven't read it yet. So,
and Jocelyn, I learned another term from you, and that is sheep-heat.
Yeah.
This is a good day. I'm learning all sorts of stuff.
Brian, we say that. I've learned it I do this startup club on Clubhouse with all these amazing women founders who, founded these companies, sold companies, who sit on boards. And Chelsea, who is one of my co-hosts, she always says, I sheep-heat that. And I was like, I love that. So I have to give credit to Chelsea for that, but I use it now all the time, because, we've all been in those rooms where, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, where things get repeated among men, and a woman will say something in the room and it's just kind of like crickets all over the place. Or it gets repeated in a different way by a man in the room, and it's exactly the same thing that the woman said, but everyone's like, yeah, that's a great idea.
Right.
So I go out of my way to amplify the voices of women and people of color whenever I can, because I think it's important.
Yeah.
Important to do so. So
no, I wish I could find a way to sneak sheep-heat into my vernacular.
You can. You
just add it.
Thinking about it. Good.
Yeah. Speaking of different, you serve on numerous boards, and so curious. We can hear your passion in giving and reaching out and building into community and others. How did you get involved with so many organizations?
This goes back to relationships. So the University of Florida is where I serve on the most boards too. And, that came about, it's so funny. It was a point in time in my professional life where I really, kind of stuck my head up and said, I need to really look above the trees, and, how can I do a better job of giving back? What are the things that I'm interested in? And of course, University of Florida is top of the list. And it just so happened that many of the folks who were in student government at the same time that I was at the University of Florida, or in other organizations within the university ecosystem, were also coming back into the fold at the University of Florida Alumni Association. So it's just been incredible, because you fast forward 20 years and you get to be with your same friends and the people that you grew up with at the University of Florida. And it's just been amazing. And you're reconnecting at a different point when, people have families, they are, established in their careers, some are starting second and third careers. And it's just being a fly on the wall again. This goes back to that intellectual curiosity. This is of a personal level where you're seeing your friends and longtime colleagues in their lives and what they're doing. And they are so inspirational. So that's how I got involved with the University of Florida. I mean, obviously, given everything that I've gotten and learned and, just gained from UF, I want to always be a part of giving back to the university. So that's how that happened. And then everything else has really been relationships. So the West Virginia University health system, when I left the Senate, I was heartbroken that Senator Rockefeller retired. I worked for him for 9 years. And I developed such a closeness to the state of West Virginia and the people of West Virginia. It was always like a family reunion when I went to West Virginia. And I wanted to stay connected. And luckily, an opportunity presented itself to serve on the board of the health system, which is the largest employer in the state. And my background's in health policy. So I got appointed to that by the governor. His name is Governor Jim Justice. He has a superhero's name. And, that was bipartisan. He's a Republican governor. But again, relationships and, in service to the state of West Virginia. So every board that I serve on, really meets does it bring me joy? Can I have an impact in the world? The reason I have those opportunities are because of relationships. And, eventually I'm going to have to say no because I have a long and growing list. But right now I just feel lucky that I can do things that are near and dear to my heart that really have an impact and really help people and, help to move us all forward.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it reminds me of me going back to college. I'm still serving at Florida with people from 20 years ago. And the opportunity students have now to even be on boards and to be involved in different organizations. So yeah, that's awesome. And so, okay, so you've talked a lot about, your career journey and all the other, the boards you've been on, the jobs you've had. So in the midst of all of your activities and experiences, how have you, or maybe I'll throw this question out first. Just how do you feel like you've done when it comes to balancing your work, board roles, and personal life? Is there a formula, or does it always change?
So, I love this question. I get this question often about work-life balance, and I have evolved in my thinking about it, I think, just based on experience. So the first thing I would say is balance according to who. And I want everyone listening in to, I think when we hear work-life balance, like it puts a whole lot of undue pressure on us to like, oh my gosh, I've got to do 100% in my professional life, and I got to be 100% at my personal life, and I've got to, juggle everything and be good at everything. No. Balance to me means, what works for you when your mind, body, spirit are in alignment, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that changes. It's not the same today as it was yesterday. Today I may need to dive into work, a lot more because, I'm amped about something. There's a new idea and the wheels are turning, and I need to write it all down and work out that, creative energy. Tomorrow, it may be that, I really want to do a yoga class. I'm going to start my day with that. And, that's my balance. I'm going to read, this really powerful, memoir. So it is not a static state when we think about balance. Balance is dynamic, and it's what balance means to you, what works for you. And so, there may be some people, balance for them is they work 90% and 10% doing fun stuff. Others, it's a 50-50. Some it's 60-40. So I do want to hopefully encourage everyone listening that there is no formula. Like there's no golden rule for here's what balance means. No, it's what it means in that moment for you and what you need in that moment to have alignment personally, professionally, spiritually, all of those things. And so it evolves. So what works for me today and the things that I like to do today, I'll always love fishing, and I'll always love, reading a good book. But, there are new things that I'm trying. I just got that mirror thing that you're talking about, the mirror that you exercise to, since we're all still at home for COVID. That's my new thing that I'm trying out. Even though all my friends are like, you have to get a Peloton bike. And I'm like, I do not like spinning. I do not like spinning. So I'm going to do this instead. But that's my new kind of, trying to add that balance into my life. And that's a new thing. So it really just depends. Mm-hmm. I bought a bunch of puzzles because in my youth, I used to love jigsaw puzzles. And I'm like, what better time than now to pick up a jigsaw puzzle and, just zone out for a little bit and take a break from work. So it's what balance means to you. It really is.
Yeah, I love that answer. I think it's so unique to all of us, right, too, because we're all different. And so what you need versus what I would need or Brian would need would be very, very different. So yeah, I knew there wasn't a formula, but it's a hard question to structure too, because
hard question.
It's a hard one, I think, in the sports industry specifically, because like the nature of the industry is 100 miles an hour, like 80 to 90% of the year, and so how do when there's games and you work for a team professionally or collegiately, you've got to go. You can't just be like, it's my self-care time.
Absolutely.
This is really, my time. But I would imagine in politics and all the things you're involved in, it's still just as applicable, learning how to learn more about yourself almost, it sounds like too, to know what you need to stay balanced or to just stay healthy. Maybe that's even a better term for the question.
Stay healthy. And look, I'm not suggesting that I've always done it well. I really bought into the myth of work-life balance at one point in time. And it was always aspirational. I'm like, I know that I work a whole lot, but I like to work. Like I get amped about new ideas and creativity and all this stuff. But as you say, and as you correctly pointed out, we have to have balance and we have to make sure that what we're doing is healthy and that we have, my other favorite thing, my two youngest nieces, one just turned 16 last week and her sister is 9. They are the lights of my life. Oh my goodness. And so now that, I'm in charge of my own schedule, I have time. The little one calls me multiple times a week. I just bought a Nintendo Switch so that I can play Mario with her remotely, because that's our thing. We play all these video games and she is totally a gamer. And so, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, would I have given myself the approval to do that? And so, Brian, going back to your question, if I could advise myself about things to do differently now or then, based on what I know now, one of them would be, what are those things that bring joy, that break up? Yes, I like to work a lot, and I work at a high clip, fast pace, all that stuff. I'm type A all the way. All that being said, you still have to build in breaks. You have to build in things that replenish your spirit, that are fun, that aren't, requiring all the intense, focus, time, and energy, as work. And so that's, again, it changes. It's an evolution. It's something that I, work on every day. But living that personal mission that has joy as a key part of it, it forces me to balance, right? I can't be joyful if I'm out of balance in any one way.
Yeah, you use a very powerful term in the context of a person, approval. Essentially, you're having to ask yourself, because I know I do it. I'm very busy. I know Shelley is as well. And you almost feel beholden and guilty to step away. And it's like, I need to give myself permission to have some fun or enjoy myself in a different, like I said, that word approval, it's like, I like that. You could, use that, say, I give myself permission to let my guard down, or to go have a beer, or enjoy company with a friend and not be thinking about work. And I don't think we do that well enough.
Brian, not only give ourselves permission, write it in the calendar. So if you're like me and you have a calendar, just put it on the calendar. I'm going to take 30 minutes to do X. Or on Saturday, I am not going to be in this Zoom life on Saturday or Sunday. I'm just not going to do it, not personally or professionally. I'm not Zooming with anybody. I'm going to spend time. I'm going to take a hike, right? Or I'm going to take the dogs out. Whatever it is, like we can give and should give ourselves permission, and we shouldn't feel guilty about it, because the endorphins and the positivity and just we can recommit ourselves even more to whatever it is we're working on, or moving through in our personal lives, because we've gotten that shot in the arm of energy that comes from doing something fun.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Thank you for that. That gave me some perspective even. And my calendar is obnoxious looking, so I think I need to. I think Shelley
I know that feeling.
Yeah. So, but aside from that, for our sport management students, in regards to your roles in the NFL and or with DraftKings currently, what kind of advice could you offer them with respect to opportunities on the horizon? I mean, obviously, DraftKings is in a very growth mode with a lot of potential in the future. So, what are your thoughts in regards to advice for them?
If board service is something that you're interested in, I would say, start where your passions lie. Obviously, the University of Florida is a big passion. Mm-hmm. And starting out in the nonprofit space is a great way to learn about board service and what it means and kind of the firewall between what the board does and day-to-day operations of an organization or a company. It's always great to be a part of the nominating and or governance committees, even on nonprofits, because they are really important on public boards. The audit committee, extraordinarily important for public boards. And so I would say if this is something that you're interested in and you really think over time you want to build toward being on a for-profit board, I would start. It's never too early to start, right? It's never too early to participate in an organization where you can learn something, but you're also passionate about their mission. LinkedIn, believe it or not, posts a lot of board opportunities, both volunteer and paid.
Okay.
You just do search board member, and they'll come up. And so that's a great place to look for board opportunities, but also at the University of Florida. There are your colleges, and I'm certain that this college has an advisory board. So when you graduate, if you want to stay involved in your college, that's another pathway. Or there may be other advisory boards within the University of Florida ecosystem where you want to get involved. And the University of Florida Alumni Association is certainly another place. So there are all sorts of opportunities to gain board experience. It's never too early to start if this is something that is interesting to you. And I'm happy to talk to anyone who is interested about that path and what you should do. I was not planning to be on a public board. Full disclosure. As an English major, all of this has kind of just, I've been incredibly blessed and worked extraordinarily hard. Using the skills that I learned at the University of Florida, being an English major and then an education major in the counseling space, analytical skills really help a lot. And so what I spend my day doing is in terms of board service, it's a lot of strategy. It's looking at the big picture. There's a lot of data and analytics on the communication side, like how are you engaging your audience, the marketing and communication side, if you're in a consumer-facing startup. Which I also advise. And so there's so many cool opportunities out here. And so I would encourage anyone just to start at the point where you're ready and at a place where you're passionate and just go from there. And then the same is true with sports. Like if you're really passionate about sports, across all of the sports leagues, there are internship programs that they have. There are rotational fellowship programs that you can get involved in. And so I would be on the lookout for those opportunities to really have kind of that intellectually curious experience where you can learn on the job and really see the inner workings of how a sports league works. And a sports league has so many different lines of business. So you could be in, product development, you can be in partnerships, you can be in communications, you can be in legal. I mean, there are so many different facets to a sports career. And so again, it's never too early to start. And there are a lot of different paths to entry.
Perfect. I really appreciate it. And speaking of connection with our students, how could our students connect with you, via social media or other pathways?
Absolutely. So on all social platforms, I am at Miss Jocie Moore, MSJOCIEMOORE. Cool. And I am on LinkedIn, although all my friends on Clubhouse are making fun of me because I always shout out that I'm on LinkedIn. They're like, Jocelyn, what about shouting out your Twitter handle or your Instagram? So you can find me across social media at Miss Jocie Moore. You can also email me at JocieGator, JOCIE Gator @gmail.com. And I will respond to all outreach. It may take me a little while, but just know I'll definitely respond.
I really appreciate it. That's amazing. Thank you. That's what we were hoping for, right? No. So now on Voices from the Field, we like to have a little fun, obviously. So we have this rapid fire Q&A.
Oh,
And it's chock full of lighthearted questions, obviously. So with that said, Shelley, let the fun begin.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll put a 1-minute timer on my phone. And then I have a list of questions and you just get to answer you off the cuff. And don't overthink it. And we'll see how many you can get in 1 minute.
okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like I need a buzzer.
I know. Here we go. First job.
American Fair.
LinkedIn or Twitter?
LinkedIn.
Favorite time of the day?
Morning.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A lawyer.
Name 2 daily habits.
Pilates and taking my dogs out.
Okay. Netflix, Prime Video, or cable?
Netflix.
Favorite animal?
My puppies.
Mountains or beaches?
Oh, mountains.
Current hobby?
Angling.
Favorite type of food?
Oh, I like all types, but let's just say Starbucks.
What type of Starbucks?
Oh, a soy green tea latte.
Nice. And what's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Oh man, it was called a high right, low left, where it was just like, asymmetrical.
Okay.
Yeah. That was back in the late 80s. Mm-hmm.
What phone app do you waste the most time on?
Zillow. Oh man.
Oh, wow.
I troll Zillow.
And time. Great job. Yeah.
There was no
Easy. That was fun.
There was no hesitation, though, in your responses. I was impressed. It was like, yeah, this is it. No,
and I love the Starbucks. I'm like, wait, I wanted to go back and ask about the puppies.
That's not a food.
What kind of puppies do you?
Oh my goodness. I have Marley the Havanese, and I have Rue the miniature Yorkie Poo.
Gotcha. Okay,
I have Marley the Shih Tzu.
Oh, isn't Marley just perfect? I love that movie. Marley. And he is such a Marley. Oh my, I don't know about your Shih Tzu, but my Havanese is such a Marley. He's into everything.
No,
you can't leave him alone for 2 seconds. He's like tearing up everything.
It's fitting, absolutely, for our dog. That's great. So, Jocelyn, it's been a real pleasure, and we thank you for joining us today and sharing your professional endeavors. Yeah. I know that the University of Florida Department of Sport Management, the students, the faculty, the alumni appreciate and value your thoughts. So, with that being said, and before we depart, I have one last question for you. If you could step into the shoes of either a UFSPM student or the UF community, what would you have asked yourself that I did not?
Wow.
I know it's tough. It's like
I'm like, wow. Yeah.
What would I ask myself that I did not? Is what you are doing right now bringing you joy and helping you grow?
Wow. I think we're going to take a clip of that at the end and make that like the intro piece for this. That's perfect. The passion, obviously. So yeah. I think that's a great response, and I appreciate it. So thank you again, Jocelyn, for your insight and time. We are your hosts, Brian Avery.
And Shelley Lyle. And go Gators.
Go Gators. Absolutely. Go Gators.